kanya next. Okay, good morning everyone.
Good morning po, sir.
Good morning po.
Okay, so good morning everyone to our
Good morning
University
po.
President, Dr. Mario Briones, to our Vice President, our Campus Director, Engineer Beltran Pedregal, to all the Dean, staff, faculty, students. Welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today's webinar with the theme Gender-Based Sexual Harassment. Before we start, please join us in invocation followed by the singing of the national anthem.
Noon pa man, malaki na ang naging bahagi ng mga kababaihan sa lipunang Pilipino. Kaisa sila sa marubdob na paghahangad ng kalayaan ng ating lahi. Kabilang sila sa paglinang ng ating makulay na sining at mayamang kultura. Kasapi sila sa pagtataguyod ng mga adhikain ng kapwa mamamayan at sa pagtugon sa mga pangangailangan ng lipunan. Katuwang sila sa pagtuklas sa mga larangan ng agham at medisina. Kapanalig sila sa pagpapairal ng batas, karapatan at katarungan para sa lahat. Kabahagi sila sa paglilingkod sa bayan at sa pagpapanatili ng demokrasyang Pilipino. Sa paglipas ng panahon, hindi nagmaliw ang kanilang pag-ibig sa ating inang bayan. Mga kababayan, ito ang alay ng mga kababaihang Pilipino para sa bayan. Tumayo po tayong lahat at sabay-sabay nating awitin ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Bayang pag-ibig, pero sa silanganan, hanap ng puso, sa dilim mo'y buhay. Lupang hiniram, dulot na ng pag-ibig, sa manlulupin, di ka masisingil. Sa lahat ng tulog, sa singer at sa lalim mong babang, maginagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang isang ng patawad mo'y tagumpay na naglilingin, ang bituin na araw na kailan pa malimasin.
Oh, dearest alma mater, LSPU evermore, our source of knowledge like the star leading, making us all go far. In our vocations, fields of work, you guide us to our goals. We'll live to serve our people. We'll do the best we can for our loved ones and our country, progressive, free. Oh, dearest LSPU, our guiding star to success.
Okay, so thank you po. Again, good morning everyone and welcome to our webinar this morning entitled Gender-Based Sexual Harassment. And to formally open our webinar, may we call on our very hard-working also chairperson, Ma'am Rosalie Palacol, to give her opening remarks. Morning po.
To our beloved University President, Dr. Mario Arbiones, University officials, our able campus director, Engineer Beltran P. Pedregal, to our GAD chairperson, Dr. Reddy Caracas, to our dear LSPU deans, associate deans, chairpersons, professors, instructors, to our clever and dedicated resource speaker, our GAD unit heads, and to our LSPU students, a pleasant day to one and all. Some may ask why we should discuss this topic, gender-based sexual harassment. The different gender-based violence can be defined as acts or threats of sexual, physical, or psychological violence happening in and around schools. This type of violence is due to gender norms and stereotypes. It can include verbal abuse, bullying, sexual abuse, harassment, and other types of violence. With the help of our guest speaker, to be introduced later, I know that we will have new knowledge like what are the different examples of harassment based on gender identity, hostile work environment discrimination, most common type of gender harassment, and the like. This webinar will be significant to all of us gender-based sexual harassment. Always remember that pandemic or no pandemic, LSPU will always ensure that our GAD unit will surely provide us with their different activities lined up for this academic year. I hope this webinar will bring new knowledge, insights to all of us. I hope that we will use these new ideas to share and remind us the importance of gender-based sexual harassment as a student and also the importance in the workplace. Congratulations in advance to GAD Office, headed by Ma'am Relly and the committee of this event. I want to wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Have a nice day and God bless us all.
Thank you, Ma'am Rosalie Palacol. Okay, at this juncture, to give us an inspirational message, may we call on our very supportive OIC Campus Director, Engineer Beltran Pedriga. Morning, sir.
Hi, good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning po.
Good morning po, sir.
Loud and clear
Good morning
naman.
po. Good morning po.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me, And just to greet lang ng Happy Women's Month. Especially sa ating ever supportive University President, Dr. Mario R. Briones. Ating LSPU officials. And especially sa GAD natin, kay Ma'am Relly Calacas and other LSPU officials. Again, good morning. So yan, we are celebrating the National Women's Month, So honoring our mother, sister, grandmother, daughter, and all women in the society, Sabi nga dun sa sa lalo yung mga lalaki, Kailangan happy wife, happy life. May mga agimat kami ni Sir dyan para hindi magalit ang asawa. O kailangang sumunod ka lang. Yan yung isang natin, So talagang hindi magagalit ang asawa nun. So yun yung napakagandang natin. Medyo ang society natin ngayon ay talagang equally sa ating lahat ng activity natin, yung job ay parehas na ng sa kababaihan. And napakaswerte nga ng ating ng ating kababayan sa ating gobyerno kasi napakaraming benefits ang binibigay, Katulad lang ng ating maternity leave, almost 160 ba 'yon? Parang gano'n, o 120. And ngayon may pinopropose na naman yung 2 days leave, para doon sa bang tawag doon, menstrual leave. Talagang pinapahalagan natin ang ating mga kababaihan sa ating society. And more, siguro mas marami pang din sa ating guest speaker na may share, base doon sa ating yung kanilang mga experiences. Yun siguro yung magiging natin makuha, kung ano pa yung mga possible na kailangan matutunan pa ng ating mga kababayan sa tayong kalalakihan para mapangalagaan sila, So siguro yun lang ating again, congratulations and more power sa gender ano natin sa GAD unit. So yan, gender-based sexual harassment. So tayong kababaihan, kaya ang babae minamahal, hindi hinaharas. Okay, so sige. Again, good morning and congratulations sa inyo lahat and hopefully ano natin kung ano yung topic na ibibigay ng ating guest speaker. Okay, thank you Sir Samuel. Thank you Ma'am Relly.
Thank you, sir.
Morning.
So, okay, so thank you po, OIC Campus Director. Okay, so in introduction to our guest speaker, today this task of introducing our guest speaker, and it's a great privilege. I know this one is difficult, but the thought that she is a woman of virtue and simplicity, she is a living inspiration to the young ones. Our guest speaker is a native of Barangay Bagong Bayan, Santa Cruz, Laguna. She finished her secondary education at Pedro Guevara Memorial National High School and graduated Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, major in Marketing Management at University of the East, Manila. She is also a graduate of Juris Doctor at Laguna State Polytechnic University. Some of her professional training, she is apprenticeship under the supervision of Attorney Zenon Agarao, a legal aid clinic, Southeast Eastern Laguna Lawyers Group, Municipality of Losiana, Province of Laguna, a legal aid clinic, Southeastern Laguna Lawyers Group, Municipality of Pagsanghan, Province of Laguna, and a mandatory continuing legal education at Adamson University College of Law. For her professional experience, a junior associate lawyer at Mangayat Law Office and Associates, and currently a senior associate lawyer Regasa Law Office, a secretary in Southeastern Laguna Lawyers Group, and a co-founder of Portrait Self-Shoot Studio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Attorney Cristel Rosas Amil, our guest speaker. Morning po, Attorney.
Okay, good morning. Am I clear? Yung audio ko ba is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. Okay, so okay. So the number of participants in this seminar is 291. Wow, okay. So before we start with this seminar, I would like to thank, of course, the university for this invitation, and the university officials as well, and to our president, President Mario Briones, and Engineer Pedregal, who is the campus director, and also to the organizers of this event. Thank you for this opportunity. Okay, so let's start. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, nakikita niyo po ba yung presentation? Hello? Can you see my presentation? Okay, thank you sa
Yes,
sumagot.
ma'am.
Okay. Before we start, can you guys type in your ages? No, para alam natin where to start. Kasi I need to be cautious in discussing this topic eh. So please, can you type in your age? Just a quick moment lang. Okay. So most of you nasa legal age na. Okay. Okay, that's good. Okay. So may mga professors po ba dito? Good morning po sa inyo and sa mga deans po natin. Good morning po. Okay. Thank you nga po pala kay thank you po kay Sir Samuel for that wonderful and very humbling introduction. Okay. Okay, so all of you, most of you are of legal age. So before we start with the presentation, I would like to na magsabi sa inyo ng disclaimer no, to keep an open mind kasi this topic might be medyo sensitive talaga siya. So please keep an open mind, and also I will be very cautious with what I will discuss today. Okay. So am I correct po that I will be given 2 hours in this lecture? Or 1 hour po? Sir Samuel?
Hello po.
Will
Hello
I
po,
be
ma'am.
given 2 hours or 1
Yan
hour?
po. Hanggang po nga matapos po ang presentation niyo po.
Okay, sige. So
Okay.
I want to be quick as much as possible, pero I want you all to understand this topic kasi this is very timely, no? Knowing that in our environment, mahirap na talagang makahanap ng safe space. Okay, so keep in mind that we have a sensitive topic and keep an open mind at all times. Okay, so let's start. We define sexual harassment. It is uninvited and unwelcome verbal or physical behavior of a sexual nature by a person towards another. So this definition is not defined under our laws. This is a definition by a layman. Okay, so very simple. And as we go along, yung sexual harassment will be discussed thoroughly para mas maintindihan nyo yung definition. Okay? So for our next slide. Okay, so first let's discuss the difference between Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995 and RA 11313, which is the Safe Spaces Act. Kasi I want you guys to differentiate the two kasi medyo confusing siya if you do not know the difference of it. This topic will solely focus on the Safe Spaces Act. Pero to avoid confusion, let's first discuss the difference. Okay, kasi before magkaroon ng Safe Spaces Act, the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995 was already in effect. So ano nga ba yung difference ng dalawa? So first, Anti-Sexual Harassment Act is committed by who? It is committed by a person having authority, influence, or moral ascendancy over another. So when you say a person having a moral ascendancy over another, it is a person who has a control or influence to a person. So to there be exist Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, a violation of the same, it must be committed by a person having authority. So for you to understand it better, I will give you an example. So for example, the perpetrator, he is or the aggressor, let's say he's the manager of a company. He is the one who will commit the violation of anti-sexual harassment, and a mere employee, the violation of sexual harassment is committed by a manager against an employee. So there exists a difference between where they stand. Okay, so you get it. There's the difference between the Safe Spaces Act and Anti-Sexual Harassment because Safe Spaces Act can be committed by anybody. You do not have to have an authority, an influence, or moral ascendancy over another. Kahit pantay kayo ng estado or position nyo in your company, in your school, or anywhere, violation of Safe Spaces Act can be committed. Okay, is that clear? Okay. So anyway, if you have questions, you can type in it in our chat box, no? I will answer it later on na lang. Okay. So Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, it is committed in workplace, educational, and training institutions. So limited lang yung place kung saan pwedeng magkaroon ng sexual harassment. Why? Kasi kailangan nga na meron kang authority or influence. Kasi hindi mo naman pwedeng commit yung anti-sexual harassment if nandun lang naman kayo sa labas. Kasi 'di ba nga, you have to have a control or influence over the offended party. Okay, so Safe Spaces Act, it is committed online, streets, or public spaces. So you can generally say na anywhere a violation of Safe Spaces Act can be committed. Okay. So how is Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, a violation of it? How can it be committed? So it is committed by any unwelcome sexual advance, request or demand for a sexual favor or other verbal or physical behavior of sexual nature. So I will further discuss it on the next slides. And Safe Spaces Act also, it is committed by any acts that are committed through any unwanted, unwarranted, and uninvited sexual actions, remarks against a person, regardless of the motive of committing it. Okay. So next slide. Okay. So consent by the victim in anti-sexual harassment case violation is immaterial. It is immaterial kasi there is imbalance of power between the aggressor and the victim. Imagine if you are a person who is a mere employee and a violation of sexual harassment is committed by you against your manager. You might feel that na baka mawalan ako ng trabaho. So instead na baka mawalan ako ng trabaho, papayag na lang ako. Diba? They are not in any position to freely act or give a meaningful consent. So kahit pa pumayag yan, it is immaterial. Kahit pa sabihin sa court that a person na pumayag naman siya dun sa gusto kong gawin. Yung victim ay pumayag. It will be immaterial and it will be only useless. Kasi under our laws, hindi naman siya material. So a consent, binigay man yan o hindi, it is immaterial. So always remember, a yes is not always a yes, no? And consent, although immaterial siya dito sa Sexual Harassment Act, consent is okay, consent is acceptable, and consent is a must. Okay, so next slide. Am I going too fast or okay lang naman? Naiintindihan niyo po ba yung lecture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for answering. Okay, so ito nga, like I've said earlier, ito na yung discussion on how sexual harassment is committed. Remember lang na this one is part of Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. It is not a part of Safe Spaces Act, which is our main topic. Okay, work-related sexual harassment is committed when the sexual favor is made as a condition in the hiring or in the employment, re-employment, or continued employment of said individual, or in granting said individual favorable compensation, terms, conditions, promotions, or privileges, or refusal to grant the sexual favor results in limiting, segregating, or classifying the employee, which in any way would discriminate, deprive, diminish employment opportunities, or otherwise adversely affect said employee. So usually, yung mga sexual harassment committed by a person having authority, it is always a condition. Say for example, pag hindi ka nag-give in, pag hindi mo binigay yung sexual favors na gusto ko, tatanggalin kita sa trabaho. Or if hindi mo ibinigay sa akin yung gusto ko, babawasan natin yung compensation mo. Pwede din na pag pumayag ka, ipopromote kita. Or pwede din na pag pumayag ka, dadagdagan natin yung sweldo mo. Okay? So may mga condition siya. Kaya tignan nyo na lang din. Like I've said earlier, consent is immaterial. So kung ikaw yung employee in this situation and you were given a condition like if pumayag ka, tatanggalin kita sa trabaho, will you be able to give an answer no? 'Di ba hindi naman? So that's why consent is immaterial in terms of sexual harassment related in workplace. Okay. Okay. So next, education or training related sexual harassment, also a part of Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995. So education or training related sexual harassment is committed when the sexual favor is made a condition to the giving of a passing grade or granting of honors and scholarship or employment of a stipend, allowance, or other benefits, privileges, and considerations. So this one, hindi lang siya sa sexual harassment, violence of the same, hindi lang siya nangyayari sa workplace. It can happen also in schools, universities, and also training institutions, no? For example, a sexual favor is made a condition. For example, a teacher and a student, where a teacher asks for a sexual favor from a student so that he will be giving a passing grade. Or gawin mo yung gusto ko and you will be granted honors. Even scholarship, minsan allowance pa nga. So I remember when I was still in college, no, ngayon ko lang naalala kasi you know, when you study in Manila, it was very nakaka-culture shock din talaga kasi you might not know who the persons you are encountering, no. And it was not my experience, pero it was parang bulong-bulungan, kumbaga chismis na lang din. Chismis na it is a practice na din na minsan the professors will be asking cuatro or cuarto, okay, during recitations, and tatawanan ka lang. Parang ginagawa na nilang biroan yon, yung cuarto or cuatro, 'di ba? Pero but if you are a female student and you care about your safety, that sounds that sounds threatening. It might create a hostile environment between you and your professor, no. Pero I hope na in our school in Laguna State Polytechnic University wala namang ganon. And okay. So ayun, again, it is a condition of a passing grade, granting of honors, or payment of a stipend, allowance, or other benefits. Okay. So is that clear? Okay.
Yes po.
Okay, thank you. The Safe Spaces Act does not undo or abandon the definition of sexual harassment under the Anti-Sexual Harassment Law of 1995. The gravamen of the offenses punished under the Safe Spaces Act is the act of sexually harassing the person on the basis of his or her sexual orientation, gender identity, and/or expression, while that of the offense punished under the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, the abuse of one's authority, influence, or moral ascendancy so as to enable the sexual harassment of a subordinate. So you see, there's a clear line of difference between Safe Spaces Act and Anti-Sexual Harassment. So under Safe Spaces Act, the act punished is the sexual harassment against the sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. While under Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, what is punished is the abuse of one's authority or influence or moral ascendancy against another. Okay, so therefore, it is no longer necessary for the aggressor to be one's superior. A peer or someone lower of rank may now be held criminally liable under this expanded definition of sexual harassment in Escandor versus People of the Philippines. So, Anti-Sexual Harassment Act of 1995, it is supplemented now by Safe Spaces Act. So, di ba nakita nyo na there's a big difference between Anti-Sexual Harassment Act and Safe Spaces Act. So, the gap between the two, the Safe Spaces Act filled what is missing and filled what is not defined under anti-sexual harassment. So, the difference between the two, I hope it is clear with you guys now, the difference, para makaka-proceed na tayo with our main topic. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, wala namang question sa chat box. Okay, Safe Spaces Act, also known as, Republic Act number 11313, also known as Safe Spaces Act. So this is sometimes also called Bawal Bastos Law, pero we prefer it to be called as Safe Spaces Act. Mas maganda pakinggan. It was passed by the Congress on July 23, 2018, pero na-approve lang siya ni former President on April 2019. So it is clearly bagong law. So wala pa masyadong cases regarding this, regarding the violation of Safe Spaces Act. Pero in this lecture, I will provide cases decided by the Supreme Court. However, they are related to sexual harassment cases, no. Pero with knowing the difference between the two, let's focus on the facts na lang, no, and not the positions or the moral ascendancy of the perpetrator against the victim. Okay, so let's proceed. Okay. So equality before the law of women and men. So katulad ngayon, 'di ba? Ang daming advocate for equality of men and women, and also the members of the LGBT community. Katulad nung SOGI bill. I'm not that familiar with the law, pero I think it was not approved by the Senate on its third reading, no. And that's sad kasi, you know, people might have a different gender identity, but they also deserve the protection that men and women already have. Okay, so it is not only women or who are protected under the Safe Spaces Act, because it recognizes that anyone can perpetrate sexual harassment and anyone can be a victim of sexual harassment. So ang maganda sa law na to is that it recognizes that the perpetrator has no gender. Okay, some laws defined under our revised penal code, they have gender, like adultery. It can be committed only by a married woman. Concubinage, it can be only committed by a married man. Rape by sexual penetration, it can be only committed by men. Okay. Pero this one, it applies to anyone. Like I've said earlier, anyone. It is committed by anyone. It can be committed against anyone. So anyone can perpetrate sexual harassment and anyone can be a victim of sexual harassment. Keep that in mind, no, kasi we are discussing gender-based sexual harassment. So as of this moment, we will be using the terms his or her, minsan they or them, para so that we will be respecting all kinds of gender identity. Okay. So meron ba ditong members din ng LGBTQ community? Okay. Kasi meron ako ditong definition of terms na I am not medyo mahirap intindihin, pero I want you, if there is a member of the LGBTQ, can you please raise your hand or type in the chat box if meron akong misinterpret na definition para you will be able to correct me. Okay. So declaration of policy, you know, one of the things that I like reading about the law is the declaration of policy, kasi dito mo makikita yung gist kung bakit na-create yung law. Nandito yung intentions ng mga authors ng laws, and I appreciate it all, no? Kasi you cannot understand a law na hindi mo naiintindihan kung bakit ipinasa yung batas na yun. Okay, so the Declaration of Policy of Safe Spaces Act is that the state recognizes that both men and women must have equality, security, safety, not only in private but also in the streets, public spaces, online, workplaces, and educational and training institutions. So this lecture, hinati-hati ko siya doon sa in 4 parts where gender-based sexual harassment can be committed. No? So let's discuss it later on. So definition of terms, gender identity or expression, a personal sense of identity as characterized, among others, by manner of clothing, inclinations, or behavior in relation to masculine or feminine conventions. So correct me if I'm wrong, I understood this as how you identify yourself. It is how you also express yourself. If you're a man, if your body is a man and your heart is a female, you dress as a female. Am I correct? If I'm not mistaken, that's how I understand it. Pero if meron tayong members dito ng LGBTQ, please clarify this kasi medyo mahirap maghanap sa internet ng proper definition of gender identity. So this definition comes from the law itself. Ito yung way kung paano i-define ng law yung gender identity and expression. Okay. Next is public spaces. It refers to the streets and alleys, public parks, schools, buildings, malls, bars, restaurants, transportation terminals, public markets, spaces used as evacuation centers, government offices, public utility vehicles, as well as private vehicles covered by app-based transport network services. So ito yung mga Grab, no? Ito yung dati may Uber pa pero ngayon wala na dito sa Philippines. It can also be angkas or joyride, no? As long as they are app-based, it can also be considered as a public space. Cinema halls, theaters, and spas. So basically, any place that you can consider as public is a public space, and also those private spaces offered to the public in general, like recreation centers, ganon. So they are offered to the public. Transphobic remarks, statement in whatever form or however delivered, they are indicative of fear, hatred, or aversion towards a person whose gender identity and or expression do not conform with their sex assigned or birth. So ito yung mga remarks na hindi maganda pakinggan coming from a person na para sa kanya yung say for example, a man dressed as a woman kasi he or she identifies himself as a female, a statement galing sa ibang tao, a hatred, no? I would not give an example of the same kasi I do not want to offend anyone. Pero alam niyo naman yun, no? We exist in an environment where people sometimes do not care if their opinion hurts others. No? Okay, is that clear? Or do you have any questions as we go along with this topic? Okay, I think wala naman. Homophobic remarks, statements in whatever form or however delivered that are indicative of fear, hatred, or aversion towards a person who are perceived to be or equally identify as LGBTQ. So ito yung mga homophobic. So most of our age, sa age nyo naman, no, alam nyo naman yung mga homophobic remarks. Yung mga Gen Z dyan, no? Kasi most of the time nga, yung parang very common na rin na nagbibigay ng mga homophobic remarks yung mga tao sa paligid natin, which is, I think, very rude. And misogynistic remarks, statement in whatever form or however delivered that are indicative of the feeling of hating women or the belief that men are inherently better than women. Okay, so ito yung mga remarks na namamaliit sa mga babae, no? Na they are pinpointing out na babae ka lang naman. You are not capable of doing this. So misogynistic remarks often happens in workplace, no? Usually, ang dami na ding cases na a promotion was given to a man instead na women kahit qualified yung babae. Kasi the management discriminates or they think that men are inherently better than women. So that is also an offense of a gender-based sexual harassment. Okay. So Article 1. That sounded very boring for most of you, pero that's how the law is, no? Okay. So Article 1 of the Gender-Based Sexual Harassment or Safe Spaces Act, it is in public spaces and also in streets. Okay. Gender-based streets. Okay, Article 1, the crimes of gender-based streets and public spaces, the crimes of gender-based streets and public spaces sexual harassments are committed through any unwanted or uninvited sexual actions or remarks against any person, regardless of the motive or for committing such action or remarks. So I highlighted the words unwanted and uninvited. Kasi most of the time, dumaan ka lang naman sa harap ng group of people and you were hearing unnecessary or uninvited comments from them. That's an example of gender-based sexual harassment, no? Pero as we go along, mas mag-elaborate pa tayo kung ano pa yung mga acts which can be a violation of Safe Spaces Act. So regardless of the motive, no, kahit wala lang, kahit motibo niya lang talagang i-compliment ka, and yet that harassment was unwanted or uninvited and threatened your personal space, it might be a violation of gender-based sexual harassment. Also, yung mga unsolicited opinion from other people when it hurts also or it threatens your personal space, it can be a violation of Safe Spaces Act. Okay, so the list of the following are first-degree offenses which are enumerated by RA 11313 or the Safe Spaces Act. So these are first is catcalling. It's very common. Kaya sabi nila ngayon, pag nag-catcall ka, you might be imprisoned, which is true. You can also be fined. At hindi lang siya basta 100 pesos, 200 pesos. It can be at least 5,000 pesos for catcalling. So be careful on what you say, especially if hindi naman hinihingi yung your comments or your minsan kahit a mere compliment, 'di ba? Make sure that you are careful of what you are saying. Wolf whistling, ito yung paninipol. Unwanted invitations, ito yung pinipilit mo na baka gusto mo sumama. Kaya in public spaces, ito yung napanood ko to sa Facebook, parang social experiment siya. Yung when a girl was standing in the streets, parang waiting for a bus, then suddenly may mga lalapit na nakakotse asking if pwede siyang ihatid. That's an example of unwanted invitation. Misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist slurs. Ito na yung diniscuss natin earlier. Persistent uninvited comments or gestures on person's appearance. So ito na nga yung uninvited, unsolicited comments or gestures that makes another person uncomfortable. Avoid that also. Relentless request for personal details. Ito yung dadaan ka, te, pahingi na number mo. Te, tagasan ka. Tapos paulit-ulit. No? Relentless. Okay. Statement of sexual comments and suggestions. This sexual comments and suggestions at your age, no? parang karamihan system telling of sexual jokes. It is very common in your circle, in your friends. Kasi aminin man natin at sa hindi, meron talaga tayong green jokes inside our circle. However, if it is committed by anyone and it threatened your personal space or your safety, it can be a violation of Safe Spaces Act. Okay, it is unwanted and has threatened one's sense of personal space and physical safety. Okay, question so far? So this one is an art. I got it in the internet only. Pero as you can see, it's very powerful. You can see the girl is wearing a pants, is wearing a t-shirt, and she receives this kind of comment. Dumaan lang naman siya sa streets, dumaan lang naman siya doon sa pasilyo, and she receives this kind of comments, no? You know, minsan kasi para sa kanila it may be a compliment, pero if you are alone and you don't know that people, that may be a threat to you. Okay, so where are you going, beautiful? Hey, good looking. Oh, wow. Diba? That is somehow, if you are alone and you do not know how to protect yourself, it can be scary. Okay. Second degree offenses. Okay. So, bali yung violations of gender based sexual harassment in streets and public spaces. It is committed it is divided into 3 parts, no? So nauna na yung first degree. Ito na yung second degree offenses. So it is making offensive body gestures at someone, public masturbation, flashing of private parts, groping, and similar lewd actions. So ito yung flashing of private parts. I think napanood ko rin to sa Facebook noon. I think it was a long time ago when a woman was riding a bus, no? In Manila, it is very common when you ride a bus na standing talaga. Kasi usually mga buses doon talagang tatayo ka sa dami ng pasahero. And during that time, the girl was just sitting. Nakaupo lang siya, naghihintay makarating sa destination niya. And then there's this guy na lumapit sa kanya, na nakaharap sa kanya. So imagine you are sitting in the aisle of near the aisle of the seat of the bus. So yun yung nasa may gitna, nasa may daanan ka ng pasahero. Nakaupo ka and then someone comes to you flashing their private parts. So ang ginawa nitong babae, she took a video of it, no? I can still remember vividly what she said. Sabi, ba't nilalabas mo yung ano mo? She was shouting, no? Seems like she is protecting herself. And that was very good actually. That time, wala pang Safe Spaces Act. So, hindi mo din siya pwedeng kasuhan ng sexual harassment. Kasi hindi naman sila work-related or are related in educational means, no? It can be unjust vexation or probably unjust vexation kasi wala pang ang law that defined and punishes those acts. So thankfully, we now have Safe Spaces Act now that will protect men and women from this kind of predators outside our homes. Okay, so similar lewd actions, ito lang, hindi siya limited dito ha. Meron pang other acts which can be committed on second degree offenses. Okay, so this is based on section 4 paragraph 2 of RA 11313. Third degree offenses, stalking. So stalking, hindi ito yung mag-stalk ka sa Facebook na hindi ito yung nag-stalk ka sa Facebook na narinig mo yung na nakita mo yung ID nung kasabay mo sa jeep tapos stalk mo sa Facebook. Hindi yun. This stalking is different. Ito yung sinusundan mo Ito yung message frequently. Basta it threatens the privacy of the person that you are stalking. Most of the time, ewan ko kung uso pa rin to, no? Pero, dati kasi, syempre, wala pa namang social media. You can't access public information of a person you want to know some information. Hindi katulad ngayon, no? So, it was very common before. I'm not quite sure if it is still common now. Sexual advances, gestures, and statements mentioned previously with pinching or brushing against the body of the offended person. So ito, hindi ka na lang basta tumingin, hindi ka na lang basta nag-comment, hindi ka na lang basta nag-joke sexually. Ito yung hinawakan mo na, ito na yung kinurot mo na, okay? Literally nakurot. Ito na yung pinanggigilan mo na eh. Okay? So, third degree offense, touching, pinching, or brushing against the genitalia, face, arms, anus, groins, breast, inner thighs, face, buttocks, or any part of the victim's body. Ito, hinipuan mo na their private part. And on those parts of the body which are very, somehow hindi naman common na hinahawakan ng ibang tao. No? Usually, when you are communicating with a person, di ba hindi mo naman kailangan talagang hawakan. Pero this time, nagiging touchy na yung offender. Okay. Okay. So why is penalty imposed? I want you guys to answer this question. Just type in letter A to E. Okay. And let's answer it after you finished submitting your answers. A quick 30-second would be enough, I think. Okay. Type in your answers now, guys. Okay. All. Okay. It's very good. May I answer pa ba? Okay. Okay, dahil dalawa ang sumagot, naunang dalawang sumagot, I will give you 2 vouchers for Portrait Self-Shoot Studio of 100 pesos off. Okay, you can claim it. You can claim it to our MC, Mr. Samuel Cruz. I will give it to you later. Miss Soriana Mary Jane and Sir Charles Kevin Guevara. Okay, the first 2 persons who answered will be receiving 100 peso voucher from Portrait Self-Shoot Studio. Okay. Please message na lang si Sir Samuel Cruz later to claim your prizes. Okay, okay. So lahat naman to is correct, no? I just want to see how you guys think. If gusto ko malaman if how you interpret why penalties are imposed. So letter A, to punish the offender. So sabi ni Rihanna, it is to punish the offender, no? Which is true. Lahat naman ito tamang answers, and it's based on how you just interpret the law. So it can also be deter future offending para hindi na maulit, social control para walang gumaya, infliction of some sort of pain on the offender. This letter D and letter E are like somehow the glory. If you watched it na, no? If you watch the glory, it somehow related siya sa letter D and E. 4, 6, 8. Okay. First degree offense penalty. So, ayun, kaya I talked about why is penalty imposed. Kasi yung mga offenses that we enumerated earlier, may kalakip yun, syempre, na mga penalty. So, first offense. So, let's say first offense ng catcalling, or wolf whistling, 1,000 peso fine, and 12-hour community service with gender sensitivity seminar to be conducted by the PNP. So, yun, kaya I suggest na maging careful tayo at always kasi meron ng law that punishes yung mga acts that threatens the personal space and physical safety of a person. Second offense is arresto menor, which is 6 to 10 days in prison or 3,000 fine. Record din to sa NBI. Okay? Hindi maganda yun pag may record ka sa NBI. Third offense is 11 to 30 days, arresto menor din to, in prison and 10,000 pesos fine. So, ang laki na nung fine pag pangatlo. Kasi hindi ka na nadala nung first at second offense, umulit ka pa ng pangatlo. Ayan, 10,000. So, if you total it, 14,000 yung magagastos mo, kukuha ka pa ng abogado, magkano na yun? Okay? That's quite expensive, no? That's why you should be careful at all times not to offend anyone, especially in streets and public spaces. Kasi when you are in public, you also need to be a responsible citizen. No? Hindi naman na siya kailangan i-discuss pa. It is a bare minimum to be asked for a person to be respectful and be a good citizen. It is given already. Second degree offense, penalty. Ito na yung mga stalking, yung mga diniscuss natin earlier. First offense is 10,000 peso fine. Laki agad, 10,000 and 12-hour community service with gender sensitivity seminar. So imagine, ang 10,000 agad yun. Second offense, 11 to 30 days, arresto menor na yun, or in prison or 15,000 fine. So whichever ito hindi siya both penalties. It might be imprisonment or 15,000 peso fine based on the interpretation of the court of the pieces of evidence against you. So depende pa rin kay judge if makukulong ka ng arresto menor or papagbayarin ka ng 15,000 peso fine. Third offense, wala ka pa rin kadala-dala. 1 month and 1 day to 6 months, kalahating taon, arresto mayor, ang tagal. Matagal na kulungan ito. And 20,000 peso fine. So hindi na siya choice ng judge kung makukulong ka o magbabayad ka ng penalty. Okay? So both na to, makukulong ka na, magbabayad ka pa ng fine. And third, the offense penalty. First offense, 1 to 30 days in prison, arresto menor, or a fine with attendance to gender sensitivity seminar. So hindi both or ito. Second offense, 1 month and 1 day to 6 months in prison or 50,000 peso fine. Third offense, 4 months and 1 day to 6 months in prison or 100,000 peso fine. Ang laki. Ang ano na yun, negosyo na yun, yung 100,000 pesos. So think carefully kung anong gusto mo. Kung gusto mo kung mapupunta lang sa pangbayad ng pangbabastos yung 100,000 o magnenegosyo ka. 'Di ba? I think mas magandang option na lang yung magnegosyo. Yeah, always be careful in what you do and what you say. Okay? Violation of Anti-Sexual Harassment Act penalty. So ito yung 1995 sexual harassment. Ang penalty dito is 1 to 6 months of imprisonment or arresto mayor or a fine of 10,000 to 20,000. So kita niyo mas maliit. However, this fine, it is adjusted by the court kasi it was 1995 when it was enacted. So 10,000 at that time to 20,000 is kinda a huge amount of money. So ngayon, medyo yung 10,000 and 20,000 compared to noon, mas maliit siya. However, the court still adjusts the fine to be paid by the defendant. Okay, so one of the cases decided by the Supreme Court, it was July 2020, GR number 211962. Jose Romeo Escandor versus People of the Philippines. So this case was a sexual harassment case. And mind you, this case happened in real life. Pero hindi tayo magfo-focus sa kung ano yung pagkatao ni Jose Romeo and Sheila, who was the victim in this case. No, let's focus yung mga ginawa niya para mas ma-interpret natin kung ano yung mga violations na ginawa that would na papasok sa Safe Spaces Act, a violation of it. So this case was penned by Associate Justice Marvic Leonin. If you have time, you might want to read some of his decided cases. Kasi he's one of Associate Justices who vocally advocates for gender equality. And he's really good. He's a really good associate justice, no? Kasi there are times when he gives dissenting opinions in cases decided by the Supreme Court, and I think it is very well written.
That I deserve to be happy, that I am beautiful and smart.
Okay.
And that many men admired me. To my great horror.
Okay. Can we please turn off our mic? Okay, para makakapag-discuss tayo properly. Okay. So si Jose Romeo Escandor, he was the offender of this case. No, the victim was Sheila. They are both employee of a company. Okay. So Jose Romeo Escandor said to Sheila that Sheila deserved to be happy, that I am beautiful and smart, and that many men admire me. To my great horror, he told me he had been attracted to me for a long time, and if it was only possible, he would have prevented me from marrying my husband. He said he liked the way I walked. He declared I was the kind of woman he wanted. So imagine being told these phrases, no, when you are a married woman. So let's incorporate yung violation of Safe Spaces Act. So meron ditong unwanted invitation, no, na he would have prevented me from marrying my husband. And meron ding uninvited comments that he liked the way I walked. I was the kind of woman he wanted. Okay. Na very unusual for a coworker to declare his love for you, especially when you are already married. In the afternoon of the same day, he gently said he loved me and he could no longer hold back his attraction to me. Suddenly, I felt his hand on my thigh. Escandor's alleged advances continued in the succeeding days, when Escandor would frequently ask Gamalio personal questions, such as her mood, what she did at home during the weekends, and details about her family, among others. So meron din ditong gestures with pinching, brushing, no? It is a second degree offense already. Third na. It was a third degree offense na. So he might be imprisoned for 6 months for doing this as a violation of Safe Spaces Act. It can also be a request na relentless request for private personal information, and I felt his hand on my thigh. Yun na nga, yun yung gestures na yun. And most of it are unwanted, uninvited comments na rin. Okay, so may questions ba kayo sa case? Okay. So far, wala namang nagchat-chat. Okay. So gender-based sexual harassment committed in restaurants and cafes, malls and cinemas resorts and water parks, hotels and casinos, other privately owned spaces open to the public. So the said establishment should adopt zero tolerance policy. So when you say zero tolerance policy, these establishments are obliged to provide assistance to victims of gender-based sexual harassments by coordinating with local police authorities immediately after gender-based sexual harassment is reported, and providing a safe, gender-sensitive environment to encourage victims to report gender-based sexual harassment at the first instance. So these establishments are expected to have a zero tolerance policy and to act immediately when there is a when there is a gender-based sexual harassment that occurred in their establishment. However, this zero tolerance policy, like I've said earlier, bare minimum na lang din ito. No? These places and cinemas are expected to provide safety to persons who are visiting it. No, and the law emphasized on this zero tolerance policy na dapat immediate yung response nila when there's a gender-based sexual harassment. Okay? Para ma-encourage din yung victims na mag-report. Kasi di ba minsan, may mga nambabastos din talaga, pero pinapalampas mo na lang kasi ang hassle mag-report, ang hassle mag-inform ng mga ibang tao kasi minsan i-victim blaming ka pa nila. So this zero tolerance policy is one of the ways to encourage victims to report gender-based sexual harassment, like providing CCTV footage during investigation kasi malakas na ebidensya yon, yung mga CCTV footage pagdating ng trial, and also other information which are relevant in the happening of the gender-based sexual harassment. Okay, so what are the roles of LGU in implementing Safe Spaces Act? Okay, so basahin na lang natin to kasi it is the duty of the LGU naman to pass an ordinance which shall localize the applicability of this act, disseminate or post in conspicuous places a copy of this act. So ito yung pagpo-post nila sa mga barangay hall, sa can say schools, pero yung mga tauhin na lugar para maging aware, no? Kasi nga sabi ng batas, ignorance of the law excuses no one from compliance therewith. So kahit hindi mo alam, the law still applies. Okay? So provide measures to prevent gender-based sexual harassment in educational institution. So duty to ng LGU, pero I would like to commend the university for patronizing the seminar of gender-based sexual harassment. Discourage and impose fines on acts of gender-based sexual harassment. Ito na yung community service. Okay, hindi naman nila pwede imprison hindi naman sila pwedeng mag-impose ng sariling imprisonment sa mga offender kasi ang mga judge lang ang may karapatan magpakulong ng tao na guilty. Create anti-sexual harassment hotline. Coordinate with the Department of Interior and local government on the implementation of this act. So if yung mga barangay nyo is active on social media, most of the time nagpo-post din sila dun. So if you might want to check your barangay if they have hotline or they already have localized the applicability of Safe Spaces Act. And you might want to save that number, no? For your own safety na din. Okay. So President Rodrigo Duterte, who himself was caught publicly wolf whistling a female reporter, signed Safe Spaces Act. A little icebreaker. Next, gender-based sexual harassment in public utility vehicles. So this, hindi lang to limited sa mga jeeps, sa tricycle, sa mga Grab, ganun. It can also be committed in ships as long as it is a common carrier or a vehicle that transports persons or goods from one place to another. As long as may involved na tao. Are we going too fast or okay lang naman?
Okay lang po, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so additional penalties if the perpetrator is the driver of the PUB. So katulad ng sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, yung mga dinefine natin na mga penalties which are, yun nga yung mga imprisonment of 1 day to 30 days or 1 month to 6 months, madadagdagan pa yon ng penalties if it is committed by a driver or operator of the PUB. So if the driver or the operator committed, let's say, flashing of private parts, hindi lang siya basta makukulong for 30 days, 1 month and 1 day to 6 months, mare-revoke din yung driver's license niya. And also yung mga franchise nila of transportation, mare-revoke din. And also payment for damages due to breach of contract of carriage. So hindi lang basta fine yung pwede mong hindi lang basta fine yung babayaran ng offender, kasi they are expected to they are under a contract of carriage. So once na, for example lang, no, for you to better understand contract of carriage, once na sumakay ka sa jeep, you are basically implied to have consented to contract of carriage. Kasi you agreed for that vehicle to transport you from one place to another. So there exists a contract of carriage. So pag nagkaroon ng breach, magkakaroon ng damages. Kasi they, as a common carrier, they are expected to have a diligence of a good father of a family. They must be cautious and careful of bringing you from one place to another. So imagine if driver ka and you have threatened the personal space and physical safety of a passenger, that is a breach of contract of carriage. So hindi lang fine of let's say 10,000, you might also be paying for damages due to breach of contract of carriage to be paid to the victim. Okay. Gender-based sexual harassment in streets and public spaces committed by a minor. So what if minor naman yung nag-commit ng gender-based sexual harassment? Kasi nga, di ba, it can be committed by anyone. A perpetrator can be anyone and a victim can be anyone. Okay, in case the offense is committed by a minor, DSWD shall take necessary disciplinary measures as provided for under RA 9344, otherwise known as the Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act of 2006. So to give you a little background lang, no, Juvenile Justice and Welfare Act of 2006 defined minimum age of criminal responsibility. So if you're 15 years below, you are exempted from criminal liability. No, basically you cannot be committed to prison. You cannot be punished kasi you are below 15 years of age. No. However, if you are 15 years of age, above 15 but below 18 years of age, exempted ka pa rin naman sa criminal liability. Pero if you have acted with discernment, you shall be subjected to appropriate proceedings. So when a minor acted with discernment, hindi na siya exempted. So when you say acted with discernment, a common example of this, let's say Pedro and Juan, they are both students, and Pedro intended to inflict injury against Juan. So before inflicting physical injuries against Juan, Pedro hid under the table so that one will not see him. Okay. And then while one was passing by, Pedro now snuck and then he stabbed one with a ball pen. Okay. So he acted with discernment kasi he hid under the table so that Juan will not know that he will be there, and para hindi makailag si Juan dun sa attack na gagawin niya. And after Pedro stabbed Juan, tumakbo siya palayo, which means na alam niyang mali yung ginawa niya. And for that, he acted with discernment. Okay, is that clear?
Opo.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Pero pag ang child is 15 years old or below, they will immediately release the child to the custody of his or her parents or relative or their legal guardian. Pero pag naman yung child is determined to be abandoned or neglected, they will be released to the DSWD. So automatic suspension of punishment, di ba sabi niyo katulad kanina, when child acted with discernment and 15 siya but below 18, hindi pa siya makukulong agad kasi masususpend yung sentence niya. So once na he reached the age of 18 or until 21 years of age, he may be committed to prison if he is found guilty by the court of the acts he committed. Okay? Yung court pa rin yung nagde-determine if the child in conflict with the law shall be committed to prison, or pwede din i-extend pa ng judge yung suspended sentence ng child in conflict with the law. Okay, enough of the Juvenile Justice Act. Let's proceed when the gender-based sexual harassment in educational and training institutions is committed by a minor. So what is sa school naman nangyari yung gender-based sexual harassment ng estudyante na minor? Okay, so they shall be held liable for administrative sanctions by the school. So school pa rin yung magde-decide if it is provided in their student handbook. Okay. So where can a victim of gender-based sexual harassment in streets and public spaces seek assistance? So you might want to take a photo of this para meron kayong reference if you intended to need this in the near future, pero hopefully not. No, in all cases sa LGU or sa police station, sa DSWD, and even public attorney's office. So for additional lang, you can also report the same to local traffic enforcers, LTO and LTFRB if it is committed by a PUV driver or operator, and in malls, bars, public establishment to its anti-sexual harassment officer. Usually sa mga security officers ito. Okay? So na-picturean nyo na ba? Okay. Okay. Gender-based online sexual harassment. This is very common nowadays, no? Kasi most of us are using social media as platform. No, minsan libangan na rin. Okay, Article 2. This is the second part. Okay, so Filipinos who prefer to spend time using the internet through mobile devices spent an average of 5 hours and 47 minutes. Ang tagal, no? 5 hours and 47 minutes. Kasi aminin man natin at sa hindi, nakakalibang din naman talaga yung social media. So the source of it is Digital 2021. So as of March, there are already 113 million Filipinos, and 86.77% of which are internet users. So that would be around 98 million to 99 million Filipino internet users. That's why it's very timely that this Safe Spaces Act has been passed by our government, no? Kasi ang laki talaga ng scope ng online. And you have to, while being online, you also have to be protected and be responsible in posting, sharing, and commenting in your accounts, through your accounts, I mean. Okay, so in 2020, 7 in 10 or around 68% of girls and young women in the Philippines reported experiencing online harassment. Okay? So, as you can see, hindi talaga common na that young women are experiencing online harassment. And 8 out of 10 or 79% of those have reported said that they have received threats of sexual violence on social media. So now you see the importance of gender-based sexual harassment committed in online. No. And please listen carefully, especially in this part of the lecture, as this might be happening to you, and I hope na walang nakaka-experience nito sa atin. Okay. Okay. Gender-based online sexual harassment includes the acts that use information and communications technology in terrorizing and intimidating victims through: first is physical, psychological, and emotional threats, unwanted sexual, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, and sexist remarks and comments online, whether publicly or through private and direct messages. So kahit ano pa yan, kahit ba comment lang yan or PM yan, as long as it is unwanted sexual, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic na pambabastos sa kahit kanino man, it is a violation of gender-based online sexual harassment. Invasion of victims' privacy through cyber stalking and incessant messaging. So hindi ito katulad nung stalking kanina, no? This is cyber stalking, and we will talk about it separately after this slide. Uploading and sharing without the consent of the victim of any form of media that contains photos, voice, or video with sexual consent. So ito yung pinigyan ka ng say for example, 'di ba? Hindi naman sa I don't want to sexualize anyone or anything. Pero parang meme na rin siya, 'di ba? Usually, send nudes in a conversation, and then minsan pa sasabihin, pag mahal mo ko, mag-send ka sa akin kung mahal mo ako, mag-send ka ng ganito. And with that, syempre, that victim minsan hindi nila alam the consequences behind that. And the person who received the same uploaded it or shared it without the consent of the victim is a form of gender-based sexual harassment. Okay? Any unauthorized recording and sharing of any of the victim's photos, videos, or any information online. So be careful kung sinong binivideo nyo, no? Na kumakain lang naman mag-isa. Can be a gender-based sexual harassment if you sexualize the same. Impersonating identities of the victim online. Ito yung poser ka, tapos ginamit mo yung account to post lies about that victim. This violation as well. Filing false abuse reports to online platforms to silence the victim. Okay, so this a clip art showing how online usage can be a mode of gender-based sexual harassment. Just a reminder lang na hindi lang babae ang nababastos, lalaki din ay nababastos, or any gender, based on how you identify yourself, you can be abused, you can be sexually harassed. Okay? Okay, cyber stalking, as I've said earlier, i-discuss natin to kasi we have to elaborate on this. Kasi it's the use of the internet and other technologies to harass or stalk another person online. So examples of cyber stalking, it is sending threatening, controlling, or lewd messages or emails to the target. So dapat meron communication between the perpetrator and the victim. Hindi lang basta tinitignan mo yung profile. That is not offensive, no? And then tagging the target in post excessively, even if they have nothing to do with them. Ito yung paulit-ulit kang tinatag, hindi ka naman related dun sa post. Commenting or liking everything the target post online. Ito yung halatang-halata ka na nilalike mo or kinokomentan mo lahat. Messaging the target repeatedly. Kinukulit mo. No? And that is, I think, a violation of privacy. Kahit ba private messages yan, if if the person who received those messages feels uncomfortable, that is considered cyber stalking. May nakita rin akong meme nun sa Facebook, parang ilang years na siya nagme-message dun sana, hindi siya nire-replyan. Okay. Hindi ba obvious na ayaw ka na lang kausapin? Ayaw mo pang tigilan. Okay. Next. Hacking into target's online account. So, alam nyo na yon. Attempting to extort sex or explicit photos. Ito yung nanghihingi ka ng mga photos. Pinipilit mong mag-send sa'yo ng photos that contain sexual contents. Posting or distribution of real or fake photos of the target. Kaya ito yung mga edits, ganun. Mga edit na sometimes sexualize another person. Yung if you watched yung mga dating US movies, parang very common na ito na pambubuli nila noon. I think it's the 90s. In the 90s when they would edit the head of a girl and attaching it to a body of a woman wearing a bikini. Yung mga ganon. And continuing the harassing behavior even after being asked to stop. So makulit ka talaga. Note, stalking an online profile which is publicly accessible in itself does not constitute an offense. Okay? So sa mga nag-aalala dyan na baka bawal ko na i-stalk yung crush ko na nakita ko yung pangalan. While riding a jeep, nakita ko yung pangalan niya. Sinearch ko online. Hindi naman siya violation. Kasi those profiles, once na nag-join ka, 'di ba nga social media, you are impliedly giving consent to let other people view your profile publicly. So may mga options naman na pwede ka mag-private, no? Pero hindi mo naman talaga kaya i-private lahat. So that stalking online is stalking online, lalo na pag pangalan lang yung nakita mo. Sabihin mo, friend, nakita ko yung pangalan niya, John lang. Sabi, wait, hanapin natin sa Instagram. Okay. Mga ganyan, alam ko na yan. Okay. So, penalties for gender-based online sexual harassment. So, katulad kanina, mas malaki yung penalty dito kasi imprisonment of 6 months and 1 day to 2 years and 4 months or a fine not less than 100,000 pesos. Okay? But not more than 500,000 pesos. Malaki pa rin. Kasi ang tagal ng imprisonment. Imagine you'll be imprisoned for cyber stalking for 2 years and 4 months or paying at least 500,000 pesos as a fine for doing gender-based online sexual harassment. If the perpetrator is a juridical person, its license or franchise shall be automatically deemed revoked. So ito sa mga sect na to sila na yung magre-revoke ng license nito or franchise. Okay, so Padawi case, aka Jack Floyd Sawyer. It is a recent case lang pero hindi pa to umaabot ng Supreme Court Ito pa lang yung landmark case. However, MTC pa lang ito. Municipal Trial Court pa lang ata yung na-reach nito. I'm not sure if nag-move forward na sila with the case. Pero this happened, if I'm not mistaken, in Benguet. Okay. So Padawi, also known as Jack Floyd Sawyer, he was an influencer. He's an influencer in Facebook. And he was charged last September 2022 for violation of Republic Act number 11313 or Safe Spaces Act, based on a case filed by Mia Magdalena Focno. So Mia was the victim in this case. So the complaint stemmed from Padawi's reaction to Focno's questioning the absence of Marcos Jr. in rescue operations of the Abra earthquake in July 2022. So apparently, when an earthquake occurred in Abra in July 2022, after the May, June, July, 2 months after the election, Mia Magdalena Focno questioned the absence of Marcos Jr. in in the incident that happened in their town. Okay. So I was not able to watch the video kasi it was taken down na din. But according to the case, in his Facebook post, in Jack Sawyer, Jack Floyd Sawyer, who posted in his Facebook defending his idol, which was viewed more than 73,000 times and shared 400 times before it was deleted, gravely threatened Fokno and even issued sexual innuendos to her. So may mga threats and meron mga sexual innuendos towards Fokno. So on Fokno's affidavit, she stated that I feel unsafe online and in the real world. I have been suffering sleepless nights, public ridicule, embarrassment, anguish, and my freedom of movement has been restrained because I fear for my safety. Okay. Meron talagang threats online. Like ito sexual it occurred hello. Okay. It occurred going back. Okay, it may be physical, psychological, and emotional threats. It is invasion of victims' privacy, incessant messaging, no? And by doing that, the victim felt that she has an embarrassment. She experienced anguish, and the freedom of movement has been restrained just because of what he posted online. So a reminder again that while you are online, please be mindful of what you say, what you comment, and what you share, no? Kasi you might not know that you might be affecting the mental health of another person. Okay, delivery rider held for sexual harassment. It is still in it's still under investigation pa rin ata. Pero it is the offender here is a Lalamove rider. When a 33-year-old woman complained that Anthony Fernandez, the Lalamove rider, has been harassing her. So she had been receiving lewd messages from cell phone number. Kaya nahuli itong si Anthony Fernandez kasi nagamit niya yung Lalamove account number niya na hindi niya namamalayan. So thankfully, hindi masyadong hindi na umabot sa iba pang punto na itong rider na to ay naharas pa yung 33-year-old woman. Okay. So where can a victim of online gender-based sexual harassment file a complaint? So you can take a picture of this, no, for your own reference. Meron na rin mga hotline and email. Okay, I will guys give you a second to have your screenshots of that. Okay. Okay, practical tips in saving digital evidence and online reporting. So dapat may screenshot kayo, may resibo kayo, no? Screenshot nyo or and then print it, make a print out of the content being complained of and contact the authorities. Okay, so Article 3, qualified gender-based streets, public and spaces and online sexual harassment. So nagiging qualified itong gender-based sexual harassment if it is committed by a person, by the driver of a PUB, or it is committed against a minor or a senior citizen or a person with disability or a breastfeeding mother nursing her child. Kasi diba, you can see, minsan may mga taong hindi tanggap na there are breastfeeding moms and minsan nababastos sila. If the perpetrator is a member of PNP, AFP, no, yung sila yung Kaya naging qualified to kasi they are expected to protect you, pero they were the ones who committed the gender-based sexual harassment, and that kind of qualified the penalty. So when you say qualify, katulad kanina, 'di ba, when I explained earlier na halimbawa the first degree offense was committed. So ang penalty doon is say arresto menor, which is 1 day to 30 days. So if it is committed by say for example a PNP, it might be instead na 1 day and 30 days magiging arresto mayor ito, which is 1 month and 1 day to 6 months. Okay, so graver the penalty. So if it takes place in premises of the government agency. Okay. So Article 4, gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace. Okay, so most of you are students, pero eventually you graduate din naman kayo. So let's talk about this. So the crime of gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace includes the following. It involves unwelcome or sexual advances. Katulad din nung sa sexual harassment that we defined earlier, pero this time, walang moral ascendancy or authority yung person who is committing it. So a conduct of sexual nature and other conduct-based sex affecting dignity of a person, unreasonable and offensive to the recipient. Okay. So a conduct that is unwelcome and pervasive and creates an intimidating, hostile, or humiliating environment for the recipient. So na-discuss na natin to earlier na it is committed by a person asking for sexual favors, which makes a person unwelcome or offensive to the victim. So this is one of the example. Minsan di naman kailangan talagang hawakan, pero hawak. Like I've said earlier, anyone can be a perpetrator. Hindi lang lalaki ang perpetrator. Women can also be perpetrator, and all kinds of gender identities can be a perpetrator. Sorry sa pagtahol ng mga aso. Okay. So this case, it is decided on March 11, 2015. It is it was penned also by Justice Leonen. So Jacinto Gonzalez versus Myla Clemen Serrano. So these are the examples of workplace gender-based sexual harassment. So again, we will not discuss their positions in the company that they worked in, but we will emphasize on what they did to establish gender-based sexual harassment on workplace. So Jacinto Gonzalez offered to purchase Myla a cell phone so that he can text her. So what's the purpose of that? Siguro naman merong other forms of communication during that time, kasi 2015 pa, hindi pa masyadong uso niya ng smartphones. It can be email or telephone or fax. On the same day, he wanted her to join him in his car going home. So gusto niya ihatid. And hindi naman necessary yon, I think. He asked her to eat out for lunch. She refused again. And on August 20, 2000, okay, Jacinto called her and scolded her. Sabi sa kanya, ayoko na sa iyo, hindi mo sinabi sa akin na may anak ka, nasaan ang tatay ng anak mo. So it created an hostile and embarrassing environment to Sheila, no? Ano pang hindi mo sinasabi sa akin? May boyfriend ka? Akala ko pa naman okay ka. Kaya nga sinabihan kita dati na sumabay ka sa akin. Ang dami nagrereklamo sa'yo dito, hindi ka marunong makisama. So makisama ka naman, paano na kung alisin ka dito? Makakabalik ka pa ba sa dati mong opisina? Ayoko talaga sa'yo dito. Ano, do you have any choice? Alam mo ba na ako ang nagrekomenda kay Eva dyan sa admin, kay chairman? Kaya ka nakapasok dito. So it is clearly, parang ginagaslight niya si Sheila. Pero in terms of the law, it is considered it can be a violation of gender-based sexual harassment on workplaces. Kasi it threatens and created a hostile environment to the victim, and it can be it is affecting the dignity of a person. Okay. Okay, next case. LBC Express versus Monica Palco. Okay, so Monica Palco and Arturo Batucan, they were the employees of LBC. So ngayon, si Batucan was the offender of this case and Palco was the victim. So ito yung mga acts na ginawa ni Batucan against Palco, Monica Palco. So as weeks passed, she noticed something in the way Batucan stared and smiled at her. She also sensed some meaning on the way he talked to her, though she initially ignored this and just tried to focus on the job. So yun na, nagsisimula na magkaroon ng comfortable air between Batucan and Monica, no? At the time, he offered to lend her money, which she refused, not wanting to be indebted to him. Okay. That's reasonable. There was likewise an instance when he secretly gave her chocolate, which she felt uncomfortable about. Na wala naman palang special occasion. A respondent, Arturo Batucan's action grew bolder every day. No? He approached her while working. He found ways to hold her hand and put his hand on her lap, if not on her shoulder. So unnecessary touching. Creating a pervasive and hostile environment. Then the time came when he started to kiss her on the cheek in a joking manner. So may pang meron ng ginagawa talaga siya na very uncomfortable, and kahit sino naman, no, when a person not so close to you do this, kahit nga close sa'yo, if it's not normally done by friends, magiging uncomfortable ka talaga. On certain occasions, he pulled the strap of her bra. O, diba? Ibang trip nitong si Batucan. There was also a time when he joked about making a baby with her. So, meron ng sexual tension between the two na nag-i-impose na si Batucan of having sex with Monica Palco. Okay, so the final straw happened at around 8 a.m. Batucan sneaked on Palco while she was in a corner counting money. Palco caught surprise and exclaimed, "You scared me, sir." Batucan then held her on her hips and attempted to kiss her lips. However, Palco was able to shield herself. No? So nangyari ulit yung kwento na yun, and sadly, Batucan was able to kiss Palco kasi hindi na siya nakapalag. And that is the last straw of filing. That's why nagkaroon tayo ng LBC versus Palco na case, no, because of what he did. Okay, so what can a victim of workplace gender-based sexual harassment do? You can file administrative complaint and or file a civil or criminal case. So hindi ka lang basta irereklamo sa HR, can also be held criminally and civilly liable before the court. Di yun natatapos sa HR, pwede ka din mag-file sa court. So duties of the employer, you can read this na lang in RA 11313. Nandito naman yung reference natin. So itong mga duties ng employer, bare minimum din naman. Disseminate or post in conspicuous place the copy of this act, provide measures to prevent gender-based, create a code, that will define, that will designate, that will investigate and observe due process in the hearing of the violation of gender-based sexual harassment in workplace. So duties of employees and co-workers. It's sad that the law should emphasize on these facts kasi it is katulad nga ng sinasabi ko sa inyo, very I'm sorry dun sa pag-iingay ng mga aso, no. This it is bare minimum, no. People are expected to refrain from committing acts of gender-based sexual harassment and discourage the conduct of gender-based sexual harassment. You know, katulad nga ng mga art materials or clip arts that you see, wala namang mababastos kung walang bastos. Walang mere-rape kung walang rapist, no? So it's not the way you dress, it's not about the way you express yourself. It is on how people react and how they show respect to other people. Reports may be made by any person. So kahit sino, kahit na-witness mo lang yung gender-based sexual harassment, pwede mong i-report. Okay? Pwede ding anonymous yung tip. And however, hindi yan magiging formal complaint. No? It is just notice to the employer who shall thereafter verify and refer the matter to GAD. So you can report anyone to your employer when you experience or witness a gender-based sexual harassment in workplace. So penalties ng employer, you can read this na lang. Okay. So eto, katulad nito, ito yung case kanina, si Monica Palco and Batukan. So although walang participation yung LBC dun sa sexual harassment, they shall be considered as liable as well. Kasi there's a delay in acting on the case showed in its insensibility, indifference, and disregard for its employee security and welfare. So employers are expected to act on behalf of the employee who has been the victim of gender-based sexual harassment. Kasi the workplace is it is controlled by your employer. So you are the first person who should think of the safety and the well-being of your employees. Kaya merong karampatang parusa, fines doon sa employer. It is 5,000 to 10,000 and 10,000 to 15,000. Okay, so independent action for damages. Pwede ding mag-claim ng damages yung victim ng gender-based sexual harassment. So hindi lang fine yung babayaran ng offender, he can be also be liable for damages like actual damages, moral damages, exemplary damages. So ito na yung important din, gender-based sexual harassment in educational and training institutions, which can be used by any of you kasi you are all students, no? So public man yan or private, complaints regarding violations of this act shall ensure that the victims are provided with gender-sensitive environment that is both respectful to the victim's needs and conducive to truth-telling. Every school must adopt and publish grievance procedures to facilitate the filing of complaints by students and faculty members. Okay, so dapat the school will be able to help the victims process and to file the complaint by this and to facilitate the filing of the complaints by the students and faculty members. So again, if a gender-based sexual harassment is committed in schools, it can be committed by anyone. So anyone can also be a victim. It can be a student who commits a gender-based sexual harassment against a teacher. Okay? So kahit baliktad yan, hindi na pwedeng teacher lang ang mangbabastos sa student. Pwedeng student din ang mambastos sa teacher, and that will be imposed upon a penalty. Okay? So hindi na sinisino dito kung ano ka sa school. Ang sinisino dito ay kung anong nagawa mo. Okay? It's not important if you are just a student, you can still be held liable. Okay? So be respectful at all times. Okay, so kahit yung victim ayaw niya mag-file ng complaint doon sa school or doon sa person who or sa perpetrator, the school should promptly investigate to determine the veracity of such information. So may responsibility pa rin yung school na mag-conduct ng investigation kahit ayaw ng student na mag-file ng complaint. Okay. So if a school knows or reasonably should know about acts of gender-based sexual harassment being committed that creates a hostile environment, the school must take immediate action. Like I've said earlier, they should investigate and they should not ignore those reports that they have received. No, they should facilitate the reports and complaints filed by the victim of gender-based sexual harassment. Okay. Once a perpetrator is found guilty, the educational institution may reserve the right to strip the diploma from the perpetrator or issue an expulsion order. So mabigat-bigat ito, no? Lalo na if you're graduating, you cannot graduate. That's a huge step back for the perpetrator. Okay, duties of the school head. Katulad din to nung sa employer kanina. Let's not elaborate on that. Okay, so liabilities din, katulad lang din ng sa employer that they may be fined for 5,000 to 15,000 if they failed to implement their duties under the Safe Spaces Act or there is non-action on the reported acts of gender-based sexual harassment. So katulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, schools are expected to act on the reported acts of gender-based sexual harassment. Okay, so this case happened in school. AAA, she's named AAA kasi she is a minor, so it cannot be disclosed, no? And the petitioner asked her to be in his office. She saw him get a folder from one of the cartons on the floor near his table and place it on his table. Then he asked her to come closer, and when she did, he held her hand and touched her and fondled her breastfed statement, and he fondled her breast 5 times, and that she felt afraid. Okay, so in his defense, the petitioner claimed that the touching incident happened by accident. So, however, no, if the victim said that it happened, she has to testify. Okay. So, di ko na-include sa slide na to, pero the petitioner was imprisoned for violation of sexual harassment. Okay. So, independent action for damages, pwede ka mag-file ng damages, hindi lang fines yung babayaran ng offender. Committee on Decorum and Investigation, ito yung ina-establish ng schools and employers para ma-define yung coverage, forms, and classifications ng penalties and procedures of filing the case. Okay, so common provisions, patapos na tayo. Confidentiality. Okay, so if you're afraid to file a complaint, no, it is mandated by the Safe Spaces Act that at any stage of the investigation, prosecution, and trial of an offense under this act, the rights of the victims and the accused who is a minor shall be recognized. Okay, so there's a confidentiality, privilege yung mga communication, katulad nung example katulad yung kanina, no, since the victim was a minor, she was named AAA in the complaint. Pati doon sa mga ibang pleadings which will be submitted to court. And pleadings that will be passed with the court, it will remain confidential until the case, until forever. Okay, so magiging confidential. Restraining order, so hindi lang after the person has served the penalty, pwede ka pa rin mag-file ng restraining order para hindi makalapit sa'yo or dun sa mga places that you are frequent, like your residence, school, place of employment, no? So hindi mo lang remedy yung maipakulong, remedy mo din na maparestrain sila, no? Pwede ng temporary restraining order like that. You file it in court also. So remedies and psychological counseling. So the one in charge in this is the LGU and the SWD. And pwede din sila makipag-coordinate with the DOH and PCW. Okay, so any fees to be charged in the course of victims' availment of such remedies or psychological counseling shall be borne by the perpetrator. So hindi ka gagastos if you are the victim. Ang magbabayad nito yung naging dahilan kung bakit kailangan mo mag-seek ng mental assistance or ng mental treatment. Okay. Okay, exemptions. So acts that are legitimate expressions of indigenous cultures and traditions, as well as breastfeeding in public, shall not be penalized. Okay? Kasi 'di ba minsan yung indigenous culture, yun yung mga nakabahag sila, no? And minsan wala yung mga babae wala ding top. So it is just an expression of indigenous culture. Hindi siya somewhat in any way a gender-based sexual harassment. And also yung breastfeeding, no? We should normalize breastfeeding in public. Kasi that's the need of the babies, no? Kailangan yun ng mga babies natin for them to grow even better. Okay. And such expressions of indigenous culture and tradition do not discriminate against women, girls, and persons of diverse sexual orientation and gender identity and expression. So as long as wala kang na-violate or na-offend, no? And it is just an expression of indigenous culture or tradition, it is okay. Hindi siya a violation ng gender-based sexual harassment. So prescriptive period, when you say prescriptive period, ito lang yung panahon kung hanggang kailan ka pwede mag-file ng action. Okay. So sa section 11A, I think this is the gender-based sexual harassment on street. It shall prescribe 1 year from the commitment of the offense. So kung halimbawa ginawa sa'yo yung gender-based sexual harassment, say on March 15, 2022, meron ka lang until March 15, 2023 para ma-file yung case. If lumampas ka doon, hindi mo na pwede i-file kasi that means na prescribed ka na. And that also occurs sa mga susunod. In section 11B online, 3 years mo lang pwede i-file from occurrence. Section 11C, I think ito yung sa workplace, within 10 years. Matagal-tagal din. Section 12, ito yung sa schools ata. Imprescriptible. If I'm not mistaken, you can just go back. And 5 years sa section 16 and 21. Okay, so the last part of this, I just want you guys to reflect on this in this image, no? This article was published by the UST. And it is called Scared and Silent, Shedding Light on Sexual Harassment. So as you can see in this visual, there's a student being catcalled, no? Hi ganda, sexy, tepa kiss, no? And to elaborate on this, there's a fear of judgment, no? In every reported case of sexual harassment, there is a fear of judgment. So this was authored by, I'm not sure if I put it in here. However, it was published by the UST, Student Council, or Journalism. So a journalism sophomore who requested anonymity narrated how she was harassed by her close friend, someone she thought he could trust. So sabi niya, inaya niya akong manood ng movie sa dorm niya. Go naman ako kasi trusted ko siya. And malungkot ako that time kasi nahirapan akong mag-adjust sa university life, she said. So much to her surprise, when the movie ended, he started making untoward advances. So he started forcing his face on mine para makiss ako sa lips. So of course, I bugged. Tumigil siya when he can't get his way on me. Okay, so minsan talaga, the person that you trusted, minsan sila yung magte-take advantage sa'yo. Pero not at all times, no? Hindi ko general. I'm just just reminding you to be careful at all times on who you trust. And although she was shocked, she said she did not tell her family about what happened, fearing she will be blamed for her actions. That's very sad. Walang nakakaalam sa family ko kasi baka sa akin nila i-blame since uso ang victim blaming ngayon. During breakdown ko kasi yun, noon na hirap ako sa academic, sabihin nila, ba't kasi sumasama ako sa lalaki na kaming dalawa lang, she said. No. So victim blaming, it can be very difficult for a victim to share those experiences or their actions. They will be blamed for what they are wearing. They will be blamed for their emotions. No? And I think that's unfair for the victims of sexual harassment. No? Sexual harassment affects the victim totally. Hindi lang partial, hindi lang half. Totally. Loss of appetite, identity and interpersonal relations crisis, difficulty interpreting emotions, social isolation, to worst case scenarios such as post-traumatic stress disorder and substance abuse. So families and friends should avoid asking questions that will make the person feel like they were being judged, and that victim blaming will only make them withdraw from the truth about their experience. Okay. So pag may nag-share sa'yo ng stories about sexual harassment, they intend to tell it to you kasi they trust you. Para sa kanya, you were his or her support system. So as a support system, when we are facing someone who experienced such traumatic experience, we get so anxious about saying the right words. But the thing is, we don't have to say much. We just really have to listen. So the last thing we need to do, and the last thing we have to do for a person who is a victim of sexual harassment is to judge them. No? Minsan kasi ang dami nating gustong sabihin pero ang kailangan lang naman nila is someone to listen. Okay? So that phrase was said by UST Faculty of Arts and Letters Guidance Counselor Adesti Dolawan. Okay, that concludes my lecture for today. Thank you. I hope you had new learnings and you understand what I shared. And that's it. Thank you.
And thank you po, attorney. Maraming salamat po sa pagbibigay sa amin ng pagdagdag ng kaalaman para sa mga students na.
Thank you.
So, po, maraming salamat po, attorney. At this juncture po, awarding of certificate for our resource speaker. So, okay po. So, wait po natin ang certificate. Okay, so let me read the text. Ano po? Republic of the Philippines, Laguna State Polytechnic University, Province of Laguna. Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Attorney Cristel B. Amil for sharing her valuable time and expertise as resource speaker during the seminar on gender-based sexual harassment via Zoom given this 15th day of March 2023 at LSPU Santa Cruz Main Campus. Zain Dr. Maria Relly Calacas, our GAD chairperson, our OIC Campus Director Engineer Beltran Pedregal, and our University President Dr. Mario Briones. So maraming salamat po. At
To our beloved University President, Dr. Mario R. Briones, University officials, our able and supportive campus director, Engineer Beltran P. Pedregal, faculty and participants, a pleasant day to one and all. I would like to give thanks and praise to our Almighty God for giving us wisdom and courage for today's activity. Also, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to our campus director for all the support and trust in this endeavor. To our guest speaker, Attorney Crystal Amil, thank you so much for your priceless contribution to our participants. To all GAD unit heads and people behind this activity, thank you very much for making yourself available always for gender and development activities. I know that this webinar is very useful and has been completely accomplished. I hope that you have learned today from our speaker will help you a lot. Thank you and good morning. So in behalf po ng Gender and Development Santa Cruz Campus, maraming salamat po sa ating mga estudyante na umattend sa webinar ngayong araw na ito. Okay, so pakisagutan po yung ating evaluation para sa inyong certificate. Maraming salamat po. Thank you po, attorney. Thank you po, CD, at sa lahat po ng mga unit heads at ng faculty na nandito. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga po.